Okay, so one of the biggest problems that companies of all sizes face is knowing which ideas they should invest in versus which ideas that aren't going to work longer term. And that can be, a product idea, a brand new product, for example. It could be a messaging idea, a new tweak on the messaging or positioning angle. It could be a different value proposition. It could be testing out a new target market to see if your product can be packaged, and then you can find new segments and new markets and new opportunities. So being able to test ideas to see if they work, to see if they have traction before making big investments, I think is a really powerful. It's a real powerful tool in your kit. If you want to avoid wasting time and money on ideas that don't work, one of the best ways to do that is do validation campaigns first. So this gives you some intelligence on whether your idea is workable, whether it's a messaging or product idea, and so you can actually get real feedback from target customers very, very quickly, quite cheap. Sometimes 100, 150, 200, $500, maybe $1,000 if your budget's bigger. It really depends on what you need. And what this all does is just to de-risk the investment that you're making. So we're actually offering a free offer of this right now, and I'm going to walk you through the exact process that we work through when we're doing these validation campaigns on ideas, product ideas, messaging ideas. We're offering a free, as long as you decide to cover the ad budget. If you have an idea and you want to get it tested out to de-risk that investment, you can apply right now. We're only taking on a few companies per month just in this launch phase. But today, what I'm going to walk you through is the exact process. So you don't even have to apply for that. You can just apply this right now. So I'm going to walk you through step by step what we actually do and how you can actually, validate your ideas quite effectively, quite quickly, and quite cheaply before you make big investments. And then each step you take towards, to getting towards, a concept or a minimum viable product or an investment, you can actually de-risk that significantly by doing this step-by-step process. So how we work is we always start with what's the actual strategy of the product. If I could just bring this down here. I've got a red pen. So what's the business, what's the product, what the problem it solves? We have to get the core fundamentals here, because the product has to be applied to, it might be applied a different message or a new feature. It might be a completely new product. So we have to get the real fundamentals in here. So this is, okay, what's the business? What's the product? What are the uncertainties? What problems does it solve? So the real clear understanding of what the problem is and what the strategy is behind the product. And then you have to look at the idea. Is the idea that you have or the thing that you want to test or get insight on, does it align with your strategic direction? So we look at things like the vision, where are you going to be in 5 years? Is this in line with the vision of where you want to be? Does it align with your value proposition? Is it something that your customers could potentially value? And at the back of this, what we're looking for is scope and KPIs, because this is where the validation test really lives or dies. What's the primary objective of the validation campaign or the idea that you're testing? Is it a new message, a new value proposition? Is it a completely new product for a new market? What are the goals that we're looking to achieve through the validation test? Maybe you're looking for new markets, or you have an idea that, okay, this product could apply to this market in this way, but we want to see if that works before we go on a big marketing campaign or a big marketing push or a new sort of feature roadmap push where we have to invest all this money and not know if it's actually going to work. What are the key assumptions that we need to test here? And then most importantly, what are the KPIs? How do you define and measure the success? So this component here is really, really important to make sure that the strategic foundation is set before you move on to the actual ideation. Maybe you have the idea. Maybe you have a rough idea that needs to be packaged and looked at better. So then we move on to something called the ideation phase. So we can use different techniques for this. There's the RICE scoring mechanism, which is more used in growth, but we can look at, say, different ideas. What's the reach that can have? What's the impact? What's the certainty? And what's the ease of implementing this idea? So we can run it through different tools. But ultimately, what we're looking for is concepts and then a priority on those ideas. Okay, are we certain that this is going to have at least? Can we get the reach now with the advertising mechanism that we use, LinkedIn ads? It's very, very targeted. So you can actually, the reach is pretty, and as long as the budget's there, the reach is sort of guaranteed. So it's more about the actual quality of the idea and what is the impact that this is going to have on the business. So we can come up with diverse ideas, group them into themes, and then there could be a vote, or there could be, looking at them through lenses like RICE scoring framework. And then we'll move on to the development phase. It's like, how do you actually refine and strengthen all the ideas that you have? Maybe let's use the example for a new, you want to do some new messaging, and you want to target a new target market, a segment where you think that this messaging, your product applied in this way, could have some, could have some traction within a certain target market. So we need to clarify what that messaging is. We need to bucket those into very set concepts. And then we need to make sure that all the details are there, the positioning, whatever that is, and then it's distilled down into a very clear ad, so that then we can go and test that as a proposition to whichever target market that will be. So in some cases, it could be you have 5 different concepts of ideas or 5 different concepts, and then each of those has their very own distinct details that you're going to be doing, a very firm positioning angle or a product idea that you have. And then you can distill that into a very clear ad to say, okay, this is what the proposition is, and this is what we're going to serve to a very specific target market to see, is this interesting to them? Do they go through to the landing page? Do they sign up? Where do they go on the page? What do they find more interesting? How long do they stay? So all of these things will go into the actual validation to say, okay, is this idea, is there a relevant interest that we can move to the next stage, which could be, it could be a minimum viable product. It could be investing more in a test campaign if it's messaging. It really depends on what the idea you're testing is, but this gives us real clarity about what the idea is and how you're going to test it. Then we looked at, okay, each concept will have to go to a corresponding landing page. So then we'll have to design the landing page to make sure that it's a very consistent experience. Every ad should go into its corresponding landing page. We have to make sure in this sense that, okay, where we're going to, if there's forms, because obviously on the landing page, we're going to have a call to action to give us that extra layer of data. It's like, okay, we can drive people through, people are interested, there's a very high click-through rate, but what do they do when they're on the page? Do they sign up? You could even put in payment details if it's a lower cost product, for example. Maybe people pay for it, if that's like ultimate validation. And then what's going to happen then? Because obviously you might not have, this is just idea stage, you might not have built the product yet, or you might not have shipped the campaign. So if someone actually fills their details in, we're going to have to come up with a flow, where it's stored, what do we tell that person, how do we communicate with them so they don't feel cheated, etc. So this all has to be considered. And then we also have to look at the analytics of that. So what's the conversion rate? What's the heat map? Is everything integrated properly so that when they go through, we've actually got this person through? How do we make sure that we glean as much information as possible? Is there something that they can fill in? We have to catch their details, and then how do we follow up? Do we do an exit poll or something like? These are all techniques and tools that we need to determine that feed into the overarching strategy. And then there's the launch of the ads. So, like I said, this process is very, very clear, and it can be tested, and it can test multiple ideas, product ideas, messaging ideas. But we have to really distill down what idea that we're pursuing down into an image, a headline, a description, and a call to action to make sure that it's a very clear package. This can be under your own brand, or if you want to, throw caution to the wind and be a bit more experimental, you can actually divorce this from your main brand. You can just spin up a test brand that's not really real, but you can test the idea that you want to do. So this is a great idea for, say, enterprise teams or innovation teams who are launching multiple products, and they want to test something away from their main brand and test if there's traction within a given market. This is a really good way to do that. Or you can do it under your own market as well, under your own brand, and to see if that actually works with the target market that you have. It's probably better to do this under a dummy brand, because then you lose all of the brand association, and you're just focusing purely on what is the strength of the idea, like the message or the value proposition or the actual product idea that you're pitching, as if it's already been built, to see if people go through to the landing page, interact with it, and maybe sign up for it. And this is where the next stage comes in, is the reporting and the iteration. So this is where the real analysis and fine-grained value comes from. So we're looking at, okay, what's the funnel? Which angle resonates best with the target group? We want to measure how effectively the landing page turns ad engaged visitors into form submissions. So, okay, we're looking at the click-through rate here. It's like, is this interest? Is this ad or idea or message or product? Is it interesting to this very clearly defined target audience? And then when we get them through, if there's a very high click-through rate, which is generally 0.8% and above, if it's above 1, then we're looking really good. Then it goes through onto the page. What are people doing then? Do they sign up? Do they pay? Is your price range such that you can actually get people to pay for a product that doesn't exist? Can you convince them? It doesn't have to be that. Can you just get them to fill in the form? And then you can say, okay, this is coming soon. And then there's an email sequence that you can come up with that goes after that. if anything else, this is good for lead generation as well. Do we need to iterate the message? Is it not getting the traction that we thought? What adjustments do we need to make on the landing page or the form, given the heat map, for example? And then how do we iterate that, deploy again and go again and again and again to make sure that every iteration gives us learning, and then we can track that and then go again and to see what insights we've got. At the end, we have to look at insights and recommendations. The whole point of this exercise or this process is to say, okay, we have this rough idea. It aligns with our product strategically because this, and then we go through a series of iteration steps to see if it actually works with a set target market. And then we look at, okay, how do we consolidate everything that we've learned into patterns, into insights, into actionable insights that we can actually use to go forward, to say, okay, we don't believe that this idea has merit, or we can say, okay, there's definitely strong interest here, so we have to progress to the next stage. And that really depends on what type of campaign this is. If it's a product, then maybe it's a concept development and user research. You can actually build a concept, a very rough one, and then you can run that live for qualitative feedback for user research. Maybe you want to actually build a very, very minimal vibe product and then put that out so people can actually use as a free. If it's a messaging idea or if it's a value proposition, maybe you want to go to the next stage and test it with a smaller cohort in a marketing campaign under your main brand. This is all depends on what the validation is. But ultimately, what this process does is it just gives you a very repeatable, very set pattern of how you can actually test new ideas, test new products, test value propositions, test growth ideas, test marketing angles, value propositions, positioning, etc. in a cheap, fast way, so that you can get very, very quick insights before you make the next investment. Because what we don't want is to say, okay, we have this idea, we're going to preload it all, we're going to hire a developer or hire an agency, we're going to spend all of this money on this new feature or this new product, or we're going to launch this big campaign with a big bang launch and spend lots of money on this. You want to be certain that the idea actually has some merit first. So this is a very quick way to get insights, and I think this type of approach is the best way to do product development anyway, and also marketing development as well. Just very, very quick iterations to see what works, to get the data that you need, and then to go again with quick insights. So if anyone's interested in this, obviously, if you're on YouTube now, there'll be a link in the description. If you're on the landing page, there's a form. If you fill that in, we are taking a small number of people each month on a free test. You'll get the process, you get to see how it all works. You just have to cover ad budget. And then if you want to continue, then obviously we can help you continue with that in terms of product development or marketing development as well. So please fill in the form if that's of interest. And if there's any questions, just drop us a DM and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Thank you.